Good morning, Rohit. Pleasure having you here with us on News9. We will come to the macro story in just a bit, but first up, the Q4 results which have been announced, two of those announced yesterday and two big ones expected to be announced today in the Nifty 50 pack. Let's begin first with Coal India, which showed that it has registered a Q4 net profit up 11% and massive momentum in that stock this morning. That stock is up about 4.42% or so. A sort of contrarian story to India's oil and gas imports, which of course have been hit over the last 1.5 months. But we are seeing massive uptick in the stock action as far as Coal India is concerned. What is your take on that particular stock this morning?
Yeah, so let me disclose that we do have a buy recommendation running on Coal India. Now, there are, of course, different angles to it. It's the PSU pack itself has been, performing pretty well because of the exposure to segments across oil, or not just oil and gas, but also metals, commodities, energy. And so that plays a role. And I think Coal India is, because it's an alternate fuel at a time that we have an energy crisis, that continues to support the case that it's not going away in a hurry, because one of the you know things that go against it is that it's coal. It's something that we want to eventually stop using and move towards cleaner forms of energy, but that doesn't seem to be anytime soon. So right now it continues to do well. And the second angle to it is, of course, always been the dividend payouts. It's been a heavy dividend payer, and that's why it remains attractive in the form of valuations. So both of those angles tend to end up helping the Coal India stock. But of course, it's been moving up since, I think, January. Even through the crisis, it did not fall much because people were looking at alternate fuels.
All right, let's move on now to Trent. Of course, one of those, the only, in fact, retail Nifty 50 player. It has announced a 1:2 bonus with a record date tomorrow, which is April 29th. Overall, India's retail space buoyed by domestic consumption. Any challenges you foresee to India's retail play in coming months if inflation were to come and hit Indian shores?
So, well, it's tricky, so because to some extent, many of these stocks have already corrected. I mean, even if we look at Trent, it's gone from 8,200 to 3,200. That's a pretty sharp cut. And that's the bottom. Of course, it's bounced back to around 4,200 now, but it's still, significantly down from the peak level it was at in 2024. So we've seen some amount of reaction. So then when we think about things like, consumer spending, it probably gets priced in. What we have to start then thinking about is, can we get the trend in consumer spending to change? Because whatever we will see because of inflation, because of the crisis in Iran, might be temporary, maybe a 6-month problem, but not a 2-year problem. And that is where markets will then start
Right.
discounting, the 1 year, 2-year kind of earnings flows, rather than look at the immediate effect of things like inflation.
Another two Nifty 50 companies, Rohit, which are due to announce their results today. And of course, the first among them is Maruti Suzuki, India's by far the leader as far as four-wheeler passenger mobility is concerned. What are your expectations on Maruti Suzuki? Of course, we've seen record sales numbers. We've also seen record production and export numbers even in the month of March. Overall, how do you view the commentary coming in as far as at least the forecast for FY27 is concerned?
No, I think it's interesting. One of the things that for the auto sector that I would really watch out for and hope for is the interest rate cycle, because that plays a key role when it comes to sales of interest rate sensitive sectors like autos or real estate. And lowering rates has been a difficult part. Of course, we are still getting sales on the back of existing business, or to some extent even maybe price increases or price changes or decreases as we saw last year because of GST. But the final charge, I think, for the auto sector will really come from interest rate changes. And that's something that may be a little while away, because we are still, as you mentioned earlier, in the inflationary part of the crisis. But we've seen a good correction in the stock of Maruti, from almost 16,000 something to 12,300 at the lows, currently closer to 13,300. I think correction has probably happened in most of the auto stocks now. So we'll have to start looking at which ones to really pick within the space.
In fact, Maruti's stock trading at about 13,300 levels this morning. And finally, let's get your view on Eternal, the parent of Zomato and Blinkit, which is also set to announce its Q4 results today. We haven't really seen too much growth coming in the food delivery business, but of course, quick commerce is a different story altogether. What are you making of the Q4 results to be announced today?
So we've generally been avoiding the platform companies, this being, of course, one of them. We are being very careful, I think, apart from maybe one or so, which maybe we end up picking there. It looks like still a very stretched sector when it comes to valuations. Numbers have been difficult to come by, so a lot will depend on what kind of numbers we can actually project. Only putting the valuation based on revenue has been the case so far. So everybody just looks at market cap to sales. But at some point of time, you're going to have to look at what is the earnings yield really, because are you really able to generate revenue from the big, generate profits from the big revenue that you're showing. So I think that's critical to future valuation, and that clarity is still not there.
All right. We will, of course, look for some clarity, of course, in the commentary which comes from the management of Eternal. But for now, let's leave it at that. Rohit Srivastav, always a pleasure having you here with us on News 9. And thank you so much for your time.